Hello, everyone. My name is Rashida Clements, and I'm the Business Development Manager at Women in Cybersecurity. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today with Girls Who Code, featuring Dr. Tarika Barrett, the CEO of Girls Who Code, Ryan Clark, the Vice President of Research and Strategy at Girls Who Code, and Lynn, Dohm, the Executive Director of WiCyS. Before we get started with today's conversation, I'd like to give a brief overview of the WiCyS organization. WiCyS is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. We often go by our acronym WiCyS, as in WiCyS, because that's exactly who we are. We are a global cyber sisterhood. Our community is made up of over 11,000 members in 107 countries. We also have 69 professional affiliates and 356 student chapters around the world. We offer a range of initiatives and skills development programs for all career levels. Also, all of the job openings from WiCyS strategic partners are available on our Job Board Plus year-round. We are currently accepting applications for a few programs. We have a CTF powered by Amazon and Fortinet. We also have a program with Just Hacking Training, and we're accepting applications for the Executive Leaders Network here at WiCyS. We'd like to thank all of our strategic partners who fund the organization year-round. Our Tier 1 partners are Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Cisco, Ford Motor Company, Google, Lockheed Martin, Palo Alto Networks, Microsoft, and SentinelOne. Feel free to ask questions throughout today's webinar. Please type them in the box below, and we will address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's conversation. And with that, I will turn it over to Ryan.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Girls Who Code to kick things off. So Girls Who Code is working to close the gender gap in tech. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and champion girls, women, and non-binary people with a special focus on historically underrepresented groups to become change makers in tech. We equip young people with the skills to navigate today's technologies while also developing their problem solving and computational thinking skills, which are also critical to being job ready. Last year, we launched our 5x5 strategic initiative to reach 5 million girls, women, and non-binary individuals by 2030 and evolve our programming to meet the demands of emerging technologies. We offer a variety of free programs that students of all ages can participate in. Our clubs program is for students in grades 3 through 12, is led by volunteers in schools or libraries. And in the program, students create projects that explore a variety of tech-related topics. Our challenges are community competitions in which participants can build a project that addresses a real-world problem and also win prizes. Pathways is our 7-week virtual program for high school students, which we run in the summer, fall, and spring. Students create projects around themes of web development, cybersecurity, game design, data science, and AI. And finally, our college and career programs are offerings for college-aged and early career folks designed to build belonging in tech and develop professional skills. So this includes our College Loops program, which is on 350 campuses nationwide, and our Upskill series, which offers virtual and in-person programming designed to support young people as they navigate the job market. So extending the work of our cybersecurity education programs, we also lead the Cyber Education Alliance, which is a national coalition of over 25 nonprofit and industry partners. Our shared goal across the Alliance is to expand cyber education and digital safety awareness for K-12 students, a critical first step in building the cyber workforce pipeline. The Alliance is laser focused on early exposure and access, ensuring that every student, especially girls and underrepresented groups, sees a future for themselves in cybersecurity. In the Alliance, we work together to curate curriculum and resources that make cybersecurity education accessible and engaging for youth nationwide. We host large-scale awareness events like our Day of Cyber Safety to spark excitement and learning. Through our Get Cyber Smart campaign, we amplify partner resources and share them widely across digital channels. And perhaps most importantly, we build partnerships across sectors to ensure our efforts are aligned, scalable, and inclusive. In addition to all this, we also conduct research that's aligned with our cyber education efforts. And we're very excited to share findings from our latest report today, which is Breaking Barriers, Girls and the Future of Cybersecurity. This is a first of its kind report which explores how teen girls feel about cybersecurity and what factors may be preventing them from pursuing cyber careers. According to ISC2, there is a global shortage of 4.7 million cybersecurity professionals. At the same time, women make up less than a quarter of the cyber workforce, which is a striking gap. Closing this gap means engaging young people in cyber early and encouraging them to enter this critical field. It also means building and maintaining an equitable cyber workforce. And WiCyS has uncovered some compelling new insights on this point in their latest research, the ROI of Resilience, which Lynn is going to be sharing with us today. So I'm very excited to explore with Lynn and Tarika today the reasons why girls and women disengage from cybersecurity and the steps we can take to engage them and retain them. So as Rashida said earlier, please be sure to submit your questions and we will answer as many as we can after the discussion. So to begin the discussion, I have a question for both Lynn and Tarika. What are the most persistent myths about cybersecurity careers?
I'm happy to go, Ryan. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you, Rashida. So one of the most persistent myths is that cybersecurity requires extremely high technical education. So what we found is that 1 in 4 believe coding is the most critical skill in cyber. And that's just not the case. Another is that cybersecurity is somehow this narrow field with just a few job options. And what we know to be true is that there are hundreds of role types, from incident response to policy to forensics to communication. And many of these roles require diverse backgrounds and strengths that are not necessarily technical. And, you know, the other thing is that girls and women believe that cybersecurity is not a field they belong in. And this is something that we focus a lot on at Girls Who Code. And this is especially true for girls from historically underrepresented groups. And we found that only 57% believe that they can have a career in cybersecurity. So, Ryan, there's so many myths, and part of what we do at the organization is dispel those by educating, you know, our community. But I'm so curious, Lynn, what you think as well.
Yes, thank you, Tarika. All of that, and of course, you know, looking at cybersecurity from only the technical lens and knowing that cybersecurity is very broad. With cybersecurity is infused in so many different business areas within an organization, it is a business enabler. And it's really important for folks to understand that all of that could go into, you know, governance, risk, policy writing, technical writing, strong communication skills, effective technical writing skills. These are all important assets, critical thinking, problem solving, looking at puzzles differently, having diverse perspectives. They're all critical components as you're coming into cybersecurity and transferable skills there. But one of the other areas about cybersecurity careers that is a myth is individuals thinking that it has to be this 4-year degree. And there are career pathways, and this being an organization that provides accessibilities and opportunities for individuals to not only get into cyber, but also have that career growth and advancement opportunity as well. We build out programming efforts to clear those pathways. There's a lot of confusion on where to get started, where to even get started. And the story is different no matter where you turn to. So with us, we build out programs where we're looking for hidden talent. We're looking for folks that are interested in problem solving, that are mission focused. And we build out a program like Security Training Scholarship, where we're taking individuals from zero into career placement in less than a year of completing that program. So that program itself of advanced certifications is 1 year long, but we're completely building and creating that pathway and leveraging folks into those careers. So we do so, and we amplify that message for so many, and even with non-traditional career changers, looking at what are we going to do, or where am I going in my career, and is cybersecurity for me? We build out so many different areas of engagement and hands-on learning for folks to be able to explore that area for them. So a big myth is, also education and how to get started and where to get started and where is my launching pad. And so organizations like Girls Who Code and WiCyS, we're able to provide that through our research, through our resources, through our programming efforts. It's a lovely opportunity for major accessibility to be had by all.
That's great. Thank you so much. And yes, it's so important to shed light on all of these myths and, everything you shared about pathways and all the different pathways, Lynn, I think is so important. So Tarika, our Breaking Barriers research, which I referenced earlier, found that girls' interest in cybersecurity peaks around ages 15 or 16 and then declines. So what does that tell us about the urgency and timing of intervention?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Lynn, for just sharing all the work that you're doing. It's so incredible, and we're so grateful to be in partnership with you. I think the timing mirrors other things that we've seen when it comes to technology, Ryan, and it tells us in this case that if we haven't reached girls by age 16, we, have most likely lost the opportunity to engage them in the field. And that's critical, right, in terms of understanding how early we have to intervene. It signals that reaching girls at this age, it just makes a huge difference in their thinking about cybersecurity careers. And, it also tells us that girls aren't losing interest because they tried cyber and decided against it. They actually start losing confidence in their technical abilities, and their misconceptions aren't addressed, right? The ones that I just spoke about. And their limited knowledge about cyber career paths is also deterring them. And I think, Lynn, you got at that in your remarks as well, in terms of knowing what the options are, where to start. And then really critical, and something that we learned in our almost 15 years at Girls Who Code of doing this work, one of the most critical things is that girls don't often see people who look like them doing these roles. And early exposure has measurable lasting effects. So, we found with our research that when girls had a deeper understanding of cybersecurity, their interest increased from actually 50% all the way to 85%. And that's significant. So we recognize that early intervention has to happen.
Yeah, and I would just like to expand on that. WiCyS started solely as a conference back in 2014. And our mission is recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. And it's a life cycle. And so what's unique about WiCyS and our founder and her vision of the conference, which has withstood the test of time, is that life cycle is so critically important. And as industry professionals are coming to this technical an inspirational WiCyS conference, because of our conference sponsors, we're able to issue out 40 to 50% of our attendees to attend on WiCyS issued scholarships, because we wanted that accessibility. Because to your point, Tarika, if we're issuing out a scholarship, we're creating accessibility and opportunities. We're welcoming those individuals that would have no other means otherwise to come to the WiCyS conference, because we know when they do, that they will stay. We know if we could get them to WiCyS with not only the professional development, and again, our professional development is accessible through early career, through students, through early career, mid-career, and senior professionals. So there is a track for everyone here. But we know if we get them to the WiCyS conference with all the wraparound services, with the Career Growth Hub, with the on-site mentoring, with the network and the community, and the presentations, and the accessibility to the conversations that they wouldn't have otherwise, that they would stay. And we hear from it time and time again. And a perfect example of this is in 2023, I was invited to speak on a panel with Female Quotient and Deloitte. A female quotient panel at Deloitte was sponsoring at RSAC. And I believe it was 2023. Don't quote me. Maybe it was 2024. No, it must have been 2023. So I was on a panel with this lovely woman named Manzi. And Manzi was a scholarship recipient before I even became executive director. And she shared with me that WiCyS transformed her life, that when she received the scholarship, she was in her cybersecurity program. And she was like, okay, I'm going to go to the WiCyS conference because I have this scholarship. But by the time it was getting closer and closer to the WiCyS conference, she already made up her mind, cybersecurity isn't for her. This isn't the place where she wants to be anymore. She doesn't feel that welcoming, cohesive, that environment. But she has this scholarship, and what harm is it in going? She already made a commitment to going. She comes into WiCyS, and lo and behold, she is surrounded by such a welcoming community. And she shared with me that our founder, Dr. Amberine Siraj, went up to her and introduced herself and said, here, come over here and sit at this table. These are another scholarship recipients. And from that very point, she knew that this was a place where she belonged. Her guard was let down. She was able to relax, absorb the knowledge in a space that was trusted and safe just for her in that moment. And because of that, she was empowered, she was inspired, she left with a camaraderie, she left with an incredible, tool belt of skills and other people by her side. And she went forward with her cybersecurity career. And then in 2023, here we are as both senior professionals on the same panel, speaking of the conference. So this, life cycle of the entire organization is just so incredibly critical when we're looking at how is Girls Who Code and how is WiCyS being able to kind of carry our mission, vision, and values forward for the communities that we serve. So it's great.
Oh my goodness, I got chills listening to that story, that full circle moment. Thank you, Lynn. That's so great.
Yes, Lynn, that was an incredible story. And I love, how you lifted up the importance of community, because that can't be overstated. We often call it sisterhood at Girls Who Code, but it's definitely a foundational element of the work we do as well. So I want to circle back a little bit to something, Tarika, that you mentioned earlier about the importance of girls having a deeper understanding of cybersecurity. And, our research shows that awareness alone is not enough. And many girls have heard of cybersecurity, but far fewer of them understand what cybersecurity professionals actually do on a day-to-day basis. So can you talk a little bit about how does Girls Who Code approach developing girls' understanding how does Girls Who Code approach developing girls' understanding to increase their interest in cyber careers?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. And I think so much of it speaks to, Lynn, what you described was the magic, right? Ryan, you talked about what we call the sisterhood at Girls Who Code. And that is a huge piece of the puzzle, how our young people feel supported. But part of what was critical for us to do at Girls Who Code was to shine a light on the data. What do we actually know? And, huge shout out to Ryan for leading this research effort, on behalf of the organization. What we found is that 97% of girls have heard of cybersecurity, which is phenomenal, right? But only 17% would say that they know, quote unquote, a lot about it. And just 26% understand what cybersecurity professionals do day to day. That is a massive gap in understanding. And part of how we see this challenge is really as an opportunity. When we see something like that, we recognize that we can design programming to address that huge chasm, right? And at Girls Who Code, our programs are designed to introduce the field in a really fun and engaging way, and also make careers feel concrete and reachable, right? It shouldn't seem like this is some lofty thing that isn't for, you as a student. And so one example is actually our Pathways program. It's for high school students. And what we decided to do, it's really simple. We offered a dedicated cybersecurity track. And the track introduces students to Python and the community impact issues connected to digital security through 2 beginner to intermediate project-based courses. And it's really anchored. Part of what we do, what we talk about in our secret sauce at Girls Who Code, is that very often our girls, young women, non-binary folks, are very motivated by the idea that they can leverage tech to change something in their community and the world. And so when we think about how we design our courses, they're very much anchored in that impact. And the other thing that has been critical in terms of what we've done is that we also provide opportunities for young people to engage with cybersecurity professionals and learn about career pathways through events such as our meetups and our industry immersion days. So we really think about these different touch points that the folks in our program can have to really broaden their schema and their understanding about this field.
Tarika, that's beautiful. I love those pathways that you're building in the high school area, and it's just incredible. At WiCyS, we're always looking at too, we have within our organization 218 student chapters. So we know when we're reaching a younger generation that it's a different approach when someone like me goes into a high school versus someone like one of our student chapter leaders that's on a college campus and university. They're going to have a stronger connection, a stronger bond. And so when we're looking at going down and, reaching the target audience of 15 to 17-year-olds, we're also looking at how can we partner with you, Girls Who Code, and other similar organizations, and also how can we mobilize our own community within ourselves and be able to make sure that these young women could see themselves in cyber just like the generation before them. And it's hard to be what you cannot see. And so to be able to kind of have that really strong network and that community on the same age and the same vibe and interested in the same music and, and interested in all the same areas of focus is really important. So we utilize your resources, the Cyber Alliance, Education Alliance resources, to impact and empower our student chapters as they reach their hand out to bring others on board. And with the student chapters too, retention is an important piece. In the college and the universities, individuals, when they go into their academic institutions, they have to know that there's a place for them to belong, to be able to have that place of learning and growth with other like-minded individuals. So all of that is very powerful.
Great. Thank you both so much. I want to build on some of what you both talked about in terms of engaging young women in cybersecurity, because one of the things that our report found was that girls are drawn to cybersecurity often. When they are drawn, they're drawn to it for its focus on protecting people, solving problems, and of course, working with technology. And so how should educators and industry partners change the way they describe cyber careers to better reflect those motivators?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And Ryan, it's something that I learned, way back in the day. I had the good fortune of leading this team that would design a first of its kind high school focused on software engineering in New York City. And as we were designing the school, we recognized it was really hard to recruit girls. And we could not figure it out in terms of why we couldn't get girls to sign up for this new school focused on, technology. And we learned this lesson a long time ago. What you're talking about, Ryan, is this need to shift the language from just the technical aspects to more mission-driven language. And when we were able to do this years and years ago, and we launched this school, it worked. And we recognize that has to be true for cyber now. What we found in our research is that the top motivators for girls are protecting people, yes, working with technology for sure, but also solving problems, right? And when we think about our work at Girls Who Code, it's always rooted in the fundamentals of computational thinking, collaboration, problem solving. And, educators and employers should be focusing on how cybersecurity is about critical thinking, right? But it's also about creativity and the ability, frankly, and some people are really into this, the ability to outmaneuver adversaries. And, so many times I think it's a lack of kind of almost imagination or just being able to paint a picture. How do we show our young people relatable examples and people who look like them to help them see themselves working in cybersecurity, doing the kinds of things that this person is doing that they may want to do someday? Lynn, I'm curious what you think.
Yes, I love the work that you're doing and the work that you have been doing to be able to shift the language and the perception, of course, of cybersecurity. That's really important. And historically, cybersecurity marketing and language has been very military focused, very defensive, very adversarial. And that kind of has that heightened sense of like isolation, warfare type of undertone to it. Even though we're so aware that, the fast pace, the ever evolving, the mission focus, the critical thinking, the problem solving, those are all really important components of it, that it did take a really determined effort to be able to start shifting the language and creating more accessibilities for people to even be considering themselves and that cyber focused. And you hit the nail on the head, Tarika, when you said mission focused. I did a keynote at Champlain College, and right before the keynote, and I was like, oh, I wonder what, our members, why they got into cybersecurity. And I sent out a quick survey just to blast it out to our over 11,000 members. And within an hour and a half, I had responses, thousands of responses. I couldn't believe it. Everyone was so enthusiastic to share. But every single story kind of wrapped itself around why our members got into cybersecurity, because they were either had friends or family that were victims of cyber incidents that really impacted them. And they wanted to help protect others. They want to protect others' assets, these individuals. This really human element is the reason that drove them into pursuing a cybersecurity career, to be a part of the solution and drive that necessity forward. So it's really powerful on why individuals get into cybersecurity, and that we use language that kind of match that mission and vision and focus that they have going into it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lynn. So Lynn, I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about the research report that WiCyS has just released on the ROI of Resilience. So women start at 24% of the cyber workforce, drop to 20% at the 10-year mark, and then fall to 15% at the CISO level. And your report makes clear that this is not a capability gap, right? What is actually driving that attrition in the 6 to 10-year window?
Yes, so a very good question. And when we became a nonprofit in 2018, we knew, hey, we could build the pipeline all we want, but what kind of difference are we making in the workforce? What does retention look like, and career growth and advancement? Because if there's a leaky pipe, then we can build the pipeline all we want. Until we solve this, then that's the only true point of inflection that we're going to have an impact on the workforce, when we understand that retention piece. So in 2008 and beyond, 2018 and beyond, we started looking at what are all the wraparound services that we could offer that, but also what kind of data can we start gathering to get a better thumb on the pulse of what does retention look like. And we're a very data-driven organization, just like you are, and we want to make sure that we were hitting the mark when we're looking at what is the needs of our community members to get them over that hump of career growth and advancement. So back in 2023, we partnered with Elyria Research and put together a State of Inclusion benchmark report. And this benchmark report was very eye-opening for us. It was the first of its kind for women in cybersecurity, but it also pinpointed that women were at a glass ceiling at around 6 to 10 years within their career. Now, we knew there was this exodus of women that happened, but we wanted to get a better understanding of it. And a few things that came out of the report is that women in cybersecurity were 5 times more likely to have experiences of exclusion come from their direct manager. And we also discovered in that report that the lack of career growth and advancement opportunity was its second highest area of exclusionary activity in women in cybersecurity. Now, number one was respect. We expect respect to be across every industry, and it is across every industry as the number one experience of exclusion. But the reason why the lack of career growth and advancement opportunities being number two that high for women in cybersecurity really was of such good interest to us is because Elyria, they haven't seen it. They've done this research across so many different industries. They haven't seen it that high in any other industry other than women in cybersecurity. So we wanted to look at what is building that up even further. And in 2024, we were really excited to share that data and that knowledge with others. And we went around to many different big conferences and shared, all this revolutionary information for people to have better insight on their cybersecurity workforce and their workforce needs in order to create a more inclusive space for growth, advancement, productivity, impacting the bottom line. And after one conference, an attendee came up to me and said, well, if women in cybersecurity are at a glass ceiling at around 6 to 10 years within their career, it must be a performance issue. And so that is what made WiCyS. You only have to say that to me once and the organization once. But that's what made us partner with N2K and now SkillRex to look at, well, how are WiCyS members performing compared to the peers? And so we did a hard skills assessment out of 60 core cybersecurity competencies. And we are really happy to report that WiCyS members are outperforming non-WiCyS members on average of 14.5% in that hard skills assessment. Now, in early career, we're at 21% outperforming, mid-career at 14.5%, and at senior positions, we're at the 8%. So that is exactly the transition that we expected to see. So it's not a capabilities. There are very distinct areas and barriers that contribute to that, which is the lack of career growth and advancement opportunities and, the exclusionary activities coming from direct managers. So when the conversation in 2025 started leaning itself towards skills-based advancement, skills-based promotion, merit-based advancement, we were like right on. We're ahead of the game. We know our members are already killing it, and WiCyS and skills are the ultimate equalizer. But time and time again, when I would ask employers at all these activities, events, and roundtables discussions, well, who determines that gets the promotion on the skills-based? Who determines who has the skills for the promotion if you're promoting skills-based advancement? And they would always say, we leave it at the discretion of the manager. And so that's what led us to the report, the ROI of Resilience. We partnered with 4-1 Insights, and we had a very distinct ask. What is the return on investment of skills-based advancement for mid-career women in cybersecurity? So each and every research that we do builds upon each other. And that's where they came back with their findings that the return on investment is to the tune of $127,000 per employee per tenure. And WiCyS is a piece of that puzzle as a third-party organization providing all the wraparound services there. So really interesting findings through the years, the 6 to 10 years of glass ceiling, around 6 to 10 years, but yet we're outperforming our peers. And what should employers be doing differently to look at the problem to make sure that they're providing fair and equitable processes for career growth and advancement to continue to retain their workforce. So we'll get to that in just a bit, I think.
Yes, so actually that's a perfect segue to the next question, because your research actually found that the highest impact talent practices are among the least adopted by companies, which is completely counterintuitive. So can you shed some light based on your research why this is? Why are companies not adopting these practices?
Yeah, and perhaps the companies just don't know where even to start. And so our ROI of Resilience, and I believe we're sharing that as an attachment along with your research report, we're sharing it as an announcement here. Our ROI of Resilience has a breakdown of where employers want to start from, their biggest return on investment and all the steps to get there in between. But it is really interesting, isn't it? I mean, out of very large companies, Fortune 500 companies, that despite the return on investment, the most effective practices aren't being used by more than 55% of firms. And the three highest areas of the largest return on investment is a formal mentorship program. That's the return on investment of $127,000 per employee per tenure. On top of that is provide personalized learning and training pathways. That is, again, a return on investment of $127,000. So employers can say that they're doing skills-based assessments, but if you're not utilizing it as an informed tool to actually incentivize employees to reach their targeted goals, to understand where they should invest with their training and advancement and have a long-term goal, then it falls null and void. And so it is interesting. We're continuing to look into that further. And then, of course, the third highest area, only 53% of the firms are utilizing skills data to inform workplace planning. So it's great that there's these skills assessments in the workforce, but utilizing it as a high-performing tool is the advantage here. And to be able to have the breakdown of how to get that done, going from point A all the way through to execution and receiving the return on investment. Partnering with organizations like ourselves is a great place to start because we have the wraparound services to do that. But also, breaking it into consumable and digestible pieces is super important.
Great, thank you so much. So this next question, it would be great to hear from both of you, Tarika and Lynn. Both of our reports make it clear that the gender gap in cybersecurity is caused by a set of compounding barriers, right? We've been talking about that throughout this discussion. So from your vantage points, where does the field most often misdiagnose this problem?
Yeah, I definitely am pondering, Lynn, all of your wisdom from the last question, because I do think, the compounding barriers, I feel like even as you talked about mentorship and dedicated sort of individual career pathways, we see the same things at Girls Who Code in terms of what's not in place, what ends up sustaining, sort of this leaky pipeline that we don't want to have when it comes to this field. And, I guess in terms of misdiagnosis, if we step back a bit, I think that sometimes there can be this over-index on just driving awareness, right? It's just enough to spark interest and bring more people in. Yet what you just spoke about is what happens when, there's this misalignment with where the investment should be in retaining people, and what companies are actually doing. So the reason I say this is that we know from our research that the majority of girls, so we're talking about 97%, are aware of cybersecurity careers. Great start, but we know surface level awareness isn't enough. And we know that the awareness has to go much deeper in order to engage girls and young women that they would actually consider entering the field. And so, I think programs like ours, sometimes people don't realize programs in the after school space are actually really, really important. Girls gain the knowledge and the insights to engage. And frankly, that sisterhood component is huge too, because they're kind of coming into this awareness alongside other, friends and other folks who are equally excited about what this could look like. So I think that that's one of the ways in which I think we misdiagnose the problem.
Yes, and you're right. And having that camaraderie and that network and that shared learning experience builds up confidence and strength in numbers in that space. And that sisterhood is so powerful and important. And, within our programming efforts, everything that we do is very, very intentional and building opportunities for our members to continue to grow that network. So as like, for example, if a high school student is in your program in Girls Who Code and they have that network and camaraderie, and then they're in early career and they're in the WiCyS mentoring program, all our mentoring programs are built out in cohorts intentionally so that network and opportunity continues to grow. Each and every program that we do is another layer, whether it's technical or leadership development program. It doesn't even matter if it's senior career. It's all about building an additional cohort network and having that collaborative space. And even as WiCyS, we started an executive leaders network that's VPs, directors, and C-suite executives with 10 years plus of cybersecurity. We just launched that network. It's a great success because it's a safe and trusted space, even at that level. When you think, oh, you've achieved it, you've matched it, you're there, you're a CISO. What else could you possibly need? Well, what you need is your community the most at that level. You need the sounding board, you need the shared experience, you need the lessons learned, and that collaborative space executes on it. So you hit the nail on the head with that, Tarika, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's very clear that one of the themes of this discussion is the importance of community at every level, right? And the reports that we've respectively released both emphasize the power of not just community, but of mentors, role models, and of professional networks. So how do we ensure that girls and women are not just told they belong, but are repeatedly shown that they do by these communities that they're building?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Lynn, you talked so much about this just now in terms of the camaraderie and the community. And, at Girls Who Code, we constantly say you cannot be what you can't see. And we need more role models who look like the girls and young women we want to reach on social media, on panels, at events, so we can connect with them. So recently, Ryan and I, for Cyber Week here in New York, we had 2 events. Ryan, you moderated one, I moderated another, and mine included, Bianca Lewis, who started Girls Who Hack. And honestly, I was like, just having her as a speaker, I knew that this was going to be a game changer for some of the girls and young women in the audience. Here she is, Bianca, teaching other young women like her to show them that they belong. And, the inspiration, what got her going was because she actually didn't have teachers who looked like her. And the content was inaccessible. And she was like, this can't be right. And then she was brave enough to go and do this. And now she's this role model. And we also need organizations, right, to measure and foster belonging. Lynn, you dug into this. When you look at the data, and we try to do this a lot, in Ryan's work at Girls Who Code, that's when you really surface the challenges, right? When you're not measuring, how we foster belonging, we know that we have this revolving door. We talk about 50% of women leaving the tech field by the age of 35 for these compounding reasons and factors. And if women don't feel like they belong in the field and the companies they work for, we're never going to be able to make the gains in the number of women working in cyber. And Lynn, this is like, your day in, day out work. So I'm happy to turn it over to you to add to that too.
Yeah, I mean, all of that, Tarika, is so vitally important for the workforce. And the cybersecurity workforce is being reshaped right now by 2 massive converging forces. That's the rapid digitization, the expanding regulatory requirements, the deeper integration of cyber in all business areas. All that's raising the bar on what organizations are expecting from their teams at the very same time where we have these long-term demographic constraints of an aging population in cybersecurity, lower birth rates, lower immigration rates, lower labor force participation in general. And so we have to make sure that we're educating others on the importance of belonging, importance of inclusion, and on the employer side, how it impacts the bottom line, because that retention is so important. When you're looking at the investment, having a return on investment of $127,000 per employee, that's something that you're paying attention to. And quite honestly, when we did the ROI of Resilience report, when we started speaking hard dollars, we're like, oh, now people are going to pay attention, because we had the data before. And the data was really important. It was great to have the data on retention. We didn't find that anywhere else. We had to produce it ourselves to be able to better understand it. And when we shared that, it was great. And then we have our skills. It's wonderful. But now okay, if that wasn't getting anyone's attention, now let's talk about the bottom line. There used to be an old rule of thumb that we would just throw out blanketly out here and there. It was $30,000 to hire and $300,000 to fire. And it's cost effective to develop the talent of the individuals that you have on your teams through safe and inclusive elements in technical training, in leadership development, and that camaraderie, the mentoring is so important. Studies show that individuals that have a mentor are 5 times more likely to be promoted. And studies also show that individuals that are mentors are 6 more times to be promoted. So no matter where anyone listening to this right now, if they're 18 years old and they're just starting college, they can mentor a high school student. They have the skill sets and the knowledge, and they have the experience of what it felt like to be that individual getting over the hump from high school into college. If you're early career, you could be mentoring college students. We all have that great experience of wealth that we could share and build up our leadership development every step of the way. So one thing that did come from the ROI of Resilience report too, and we call it Winning with WiCyS, is that WiCyS members have a 32% lower attrition rate than non-WiCyS members. So in the world of cybersecurity that has much a higher attrition rate than other IT roles, it's really promising to know that because we're that association and that mid-career that kind of wraps around all of the services that you need to be retained in that talented space, that it's coming out in the data that we're actually contributing to the retention of employees for employer partners of ours. So all good. A lot more work needs to be done, right, Tarika? I mean, look at the data, your report of our report. It's like, oh my gosh, but progress has been made. It's good to see the progress, and we're okay with the opportunity of what we faced with ahead.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better.
Yes, and it's also so important to celebrate the wins, and congratulations on that stat, Lynn, because that's a really powerful illustration of the impact that you're having. So that's really great to hear. We just have one more question, and then after that, we're going to take a few questions from the audience. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what employers can do better. And we've touched on this a little bit, but I want to focus on it in this last question. So how can employers support the education to career transition earlier? So before a student is applying for a full-time cyber role, what can be done?
Yeah. I mean, really quickly, Ryan, I think it's about making an investment, like programs like WiCyS, like Girls Who Code. It's like also a talent strategy, not just a CSR strategy. We're deeply grateful for partner support. But we know that, the most effective pathway into cyber careers runs through programs like the ones we're talking about that offer these readily available tools and resources. And the truth is, we recognize, Lynn, you were just saying this, we have a lot more work to do. And when we're able to have these resources, we can reach so many more, people. And, so much of it is also having professionals partner with us to build community that we've talked about and create pathways to bring others along. And, some of it is also employers. This is big for us at Girls Who Code. How do we create internship opportunities, right? Sometimes that ends up being the game-changing experience for a young person. It's about education, but also the career transition. Very often our young people, again, need to see people doing this. And that's the way that, programs like internships or early sort of career or bridge kinds of opportunities can be huge.
Yes, those internships are so powerful. And the hands-on learning, nothing will replace the opportunity of hands-on learning in a cohort community network-based setting, whether it's virtual or in person. So employers on how they can make a difference is that to know that their investment matters and to know that there are programming efforts and opportunities for them to expand and accelerate those opportunities. So it's not necessarily that they have to reinvent the wheel. There's data and research that shows that organizations like Girls Who Code and WiCyS knows what's making an impact, and we're able to expand on that. And our employer partners can join right in and join forces with us and have a great learning opportunities for all involved. Even within WiCyS, we always say that anyone over the age of 45 needs to be mentored by someone under the age of 30. Like that reverse mentoring is so critical for the generational shift that's going to be happening in cybersecurity. So as employer partners are looking at what is their investment in the workforce, how could they help bridge that? They can do so by partnering with Girls Who Code, by partnering with WiCyS, by building on the programs that we have in existence, that we have impact, that we have data on, that we understand what is the return on investment, and amplify that messaging all throughout their communities.
Great, thank you so much. So with that, I think we can turn it over to some questions that we've received from the audience. And thank you so much to all of you that have shared questions. There's some really thoughtful ones in here. So I'm going to start with a question from a recent grad whose goal is to become a CISO at some point. So that's really exciting to hear. So this person wants to know, what can we do to get around the glass ceiling at the 6 to 10 year mark in the field?
Oh, that's a good question. When we got that data, we're like, well, what do people need at 6 to 10 years? So we went to our Make Career members and we were like, we're here, we're WiCyS, we're a nonprofit, we got your back. What do you need from us? And the message just kind of came back as, well, if we knew what we needed, wouldn't we have it? Yeah, at that level, you really do have access to technical training resources and items like that. So what we did is we flipped the narrative and we went to our senior career professionals and we said, think back to 6 to 10 years within your career when you're a mid-career individual. What was that aha moment? Or what was that one thing or that one experience that got you over the edge and got you over the hump into a more senior position? And everyone has a story. Every single person. They were sponsored by an individual. Someone stood up for them, spoke highly about them when they weren't in the room. That's incredible. But the common theme of the responses back to us at that mid-career level was the ability to speak in a way where leaders were paying attention. So in mid-career, there's various technical components there and all of that, but to have the ability to speak clearly and effectively where decision-making could happen promptly because of it, leaders start paying attention to that. So as you're aspiring to your CISO role, know that your ongoing training and learning opportunities are so critical. Your mentoring is absolutely critical. That career growth and advancement can't happen for anyone without mentoring, no matter what industry you're in. We all need mentors. And on top of all of that, to really tap into your executive presence, your speaking capabilities, how do you bring clarity and light to a very complicated, complex topic? And that's why at WiCyS, we have actually right now, Rashida said at the very beginning, we have a program for executive presence that's called Create Your Leading Edge. And that program is open for enrollment right now. We also have a stage ready program. No matter if your stage is the boardroom, the negotiation table, or a keynote stage, it doesn't matter what your stage is, but refine your speaking to a point that is effective for all. So that would be another area. And we have an aspiring CISO's program too. So, hey, you're an aspiring CISO, check that program out too.
Tarika, anything to add?
No, I just love hearing Lynn talk about the program. That was the question completely directed at the kind of work you're doing right now. And to be honest, I was so energized to hear also about, this being the thing that you identified, that if folks can communicate effectively, learn from others, figure out how to take something complicated and really make it digestible. It's so smart and thoughtful, and I'm so glad that that's a resource that you have.
Thanks, Tarika.
Thank you so much. So another question, someone wants to know, what are the biggest mistakes that students make as they're preparing for to work in the cybersecurity workforce? So a student that's getting ready to graduate and is moving into the cyber workforce, what are some of the biggest mistakes that they make and how can they avoid them?
That's such an interesting question. And it's so funny. The thing that Ryan doesn't know is that I'm going to completely turn it on Ryan also, because believe it or not, she's moderating, but she's the expert. I would be curious, Lynn, what you're seeing, because I don't even know. First of all, I would reframe. I wouldn't call anything mistakes, but rather learning opportunities, because I don't think that any young people, that you're making any mistakes, quote unquote, as you explore. And if you treat it like exploration and you're spacious and you recognize that you're learning, regardless of whether you open that door or close that door or open another door. But Lynn, maybe you have thoughts, and then Ryan, especially given your leadership role in a lot of the research we've done, nothing comes concretely to mind for me on this topic, but Ryan might have thoughts too. But Lynn, what are you thinking about?
So right now, what we're seeing with our employers, and the hiring practices are so different than they were 2 years ago, just so different. And employers are looking for capability, like abilities, like people's drive. They're really looking, they're glazing over the resume. They're impressed with resumes that are coming in, but the questions from the employers are builders. They want to see evidence of building and creativity and innovation and application, and what are their use cases that they've had with AI and agents and all the different various tools. So when you're looking at preparing yourself for the workforce, look at what kind of communities are you involved in? What kind of areas are you focusing your attention to in the volunteer capacity and showing up to? And what are you building because of it? And can you speak to that during an interview? Because the workforce is changing so rapidly. I'm a part of a senior Signal thread channel, and one of a senior executive posts, and it made me chuckle, but he posted last week, he was like, the good old days of 2024. And I thought, my gosh, 2024 was vastly different in the workforce for cybersecurity. Even how we're hiring is so different. So just pay attention to what kind of hands-on you could get to, and how you can speak to that, and really let that shine in your interview process. But Tarika, I love how you positioned it about there are no mistakes here.
There are no mistakes and no missteps, because I think also, Lynn, you kind of intimated this, but this is a whole new world order. When we think about technology, the seismic shifts we're seeing. So believe it or not, many of our young people entering into the field are quickly going to become experts of their own kind because of the nimbleness, the willingness to kind of roll sleeves up and figure it out. You talked about reverse mentorship and the fact that it's very often the young professionals in these entry-level roles that turn around and really educate their more senior colleagues. And so I genuinely believe that every one of these opportunities and experiences that you have are going to be edifying. Ryan, what would you add to that, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add is not to over-index on the importance of certifications. I think one thing that we've seen is students can often just like focus almost completely on kind of collecting certificates rather than focusing and investing time on building skills, even the most basic skills, because they're going to need both in order to appeal to an employer. So I would say, kind of diversify your preparation so that it's not over-indexing just on certifications, but also building skills, and also, both technical skills, but also those more durable skills, and kind of, we sometimes call them evergreen skills, right? Like problem solving, communication, collaboration, all those things are extremely important and essential, and will definitely help open doors. So, okay, great.
Great point.
Thanks. I think we have time for one more question. And this one, Lynn, I think is definitely great for you. So someone wanted to say that WiCyS does an outstanding job supporting students and early career professionals. What programs, resources, or pathways does WiCyS offer to help seasoned professionals transition into cybersecurity leadership or technical roles?
Oh my goodness, that's so great. So WiCyS, we have so many different programming efforts. Last year alone, we ran over 100 different programs and engaged over 50,000 participants. So as a more seasoned professional with career growth and advancement opportunities, go to our website, check out all our programs, because our programs have comparable representation in early career, mid-career, and senior career, either in technical or leadership development. So you'll see that even aspiring, senior professionals, mid-career going into senior professionals, we have cybersecurity exercises aligned just for them at that more senior position. We have an aspiring CISO program. I believe that might still be open for applications right now. We also have different various cyber ranges or executive leaders network. I mean, there's all sorts of different programs at that range. And we really do focus on that mid-career. That retention is critical. And for us as an organization to really know what kind of impact are we making on the workforce. And we want to ensure that we're providing all the wraparound services for an individual at that mid-career to get into their more senior positions. So check out our website. If you have any questions at all, go to info@wicys.org. We have a huge support team that's always there ready to help you build out what's your next step. And then also join our Mentor-Mentee program. Our Mentor-Mentee program has a 6-month curriculum that's all designed and developed by senior professionals on what matters to them at this moment. It is a signature program of the WiCyS organization. We've been running it since 2020, and this year we had over 1,600 enrolled in it. So it's a powerful cohort setting program that everyone should be a part of. So thank you for having WiCyS as part of your journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lynn. Tarika and Lynn, I just want to thank you both so much for your time today and for sharing all of your incredible wisdom, and also for spotlighting the really innovative research that both of our organizations are doing. I want to point out to the audience members that both reports are available in the attachments section of this talk and are also available on our respective websites. So please, explore the research and enjoy. And I just want to thank you both, and thank you everyone who joined us today.
Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lynn.
And wonderful moderator of a panel. Tarika, it's just lovely to have this time with you.
Oh, same friend.
Yes. So, and everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really fortunate to have such a strong partnership with Girls Who Code, and this is just a special honor to be here together.
Oh no, same. Right back at you, friend. You're doing such amazing work, and thank you everyone for tuning into this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.